Okay, so picture this. You've been saving up all year long doing dishes, mowing the lawn, and washing cars. And now you have $400 burning a hole in your pocket, just dying to be spent on that gaming PC you've wanted to get for years. Does this sound like you? Hello everyone and welcome to Techlandia. Now today we're going to talk about getting into PC gaming for around $400. The reason I want to talk about this price point specifically is because in my experience building computers for friends and family, $400 seems to be the amount of money a lot of people say they're willing to spend on a budget rig. I think this is because consoles release new at around this price, so people are used to spending around $400 for their gaming needs. Okay, so you really have two viable options in my opinion. You can buy an old pre-built office computer for cheap and throw a modern graphics card in it and boom, you've got a gaming PC. Or you can build a PC from scratch using cheap, low-end hardware from the newest platforms to fit your budget. Both are viable options and have their own inherent advantages and disadvantages. So let's first talk about going with an old office computer. I've personally used this method before when assembling various computers and it's pretty painless and effective. The cool thing about this method is that while old office computers might not have all the flashy RGB and tempered glass side panels you want, they usually come from reputable manufacturers like Dell or HP and have old tried and true hardware, meaning stability and reliability are to be expected. Many times buying a second-hand refurbished PC can come with a warranty as well as a copy of Windows and a Wi-Fi card in case you don't have access to a cable. However, your mileage may vary from listing to listing, so make sure to read the description before buying, if something like a warranty or Wi-Fi card is important to you. I recommend getting something like this Dell I found on eBay, but generally anything with a 2nd gen i5 or better and at least 8GB of RAM will be suitable and can be found easily for under $200. From there, throw a 120GB boot SSD in there, and like a GTX 1050 Ti, and you have a pretty solid 1080p gaming PC. However, it's not all good news. While for the most part an office PC like the one mentioned earlier will suffice for now, you sacrifice on aesthetics and more importantly, future upgradability. While nothing's stopping you from say upgrading to a generational i7, like an i7 2700K on the Sandy Bridge platform, and buying more DDR3 RAM, why would you? At this point, these platforms are at the point where if you're going to buy something like that, you might as well jump to a new platform for future upgradability. Also, from my experience, most office PCs have very limited power supplies that often don't come with PCIe power connectors, meaning you are essentially limited to a card like a GTX 1050 Ti or lower because it can suck all of its power through the PCIe slot. Try and get anything better, and you're going to need a new power supply with PCIe connectors. And lastly, while this is avoidable, many office PCs come in small form factor cases, designed to save space, which is nice. However, this means again, you're going to be limited in terms of which GPU you can fit inside, so make sure to find one that comes in a micro ATX or ATX case. Okay then fine, I hear you saying, I'll just build a $400 PC from scratch and skip all that tomfoolery, right? Well, there are options for this as well, with its own pros and cons of course. I recommend putting together something like this. In my opinion, this build strikes a good middle ground between good performance now, as well as leaving room for future upgradability. The Ryzen 3 2200G is an APU, which means along with a traditional quad-core CPU, it comes with a Vega 8 graphics chip baked onto the package. Once overclocked on this B350 motherboard, this graphics solution will provide around GT 1030 or 750 Ti performance, meaning good esports gaming and even some AAA gaming at lower settings and resolutions. There are other ways to build a $400 PC new, like ones using Intel's Pentium chips and like a GT 1030. However, you're going to miss out on overclocking, and Intel's Pentium chips don't offer as much multi-threaded performance as a Ryzen APU, meaning once again future upgradability is somewhat compromised. I just personally really like this Ryzen build shown earlier because with a B350 board, you can overclock your CPU, and most B350 boards have 4 RAM slots for easy upgradability. Something like a 2200G as a standalone CPU could even keep up decently with like a GTX 1060 or RX 580, so it's a good route to take if you see yourself building a rig and saving up for a beefy GPU later. You also have the option of getting a cheaper case and no SSD to afford maybe the Ryzen 5 2400G with 4 cores and 8 threads and a beefier Vega 11 GPU on board, or even going with a B450 motherboard for guaranteed BIOS compatibility out of the box. A B350 motherboard will work just fine, but you need to make sure you read the description and reviews to make sure it's compatible out of the box, because if not, you will need to perform a BIOS update with a 1st gen Ryzen CPU first in order to use the 2nd generation Ryzen APUs. But that's kind of the cool thing about going this route. You have options. You can choose Intel's budget lineup or AMD's, find deals on power supplies and motherboards and SSDs, and configure your rig to your liking. If you want to sacrifice some performance for some sweet RGB fans, I wouldn't recommend it, but you do have that option. But wait, I hear you screaming, GT 1030, 750 Ti, Ryzen APU, and the other build you had a full fat GTX 1050 Ti. Yes, this is the trade-off I mentioned earlier. The trade-off going with a shiny new platform with all the options and bells and whistles is you pay a premium for the new stuff. Old hardware is cheap because you lose out on newer features and upgrade paths that come with getting the new stuff. Because it's cheaper, it allows you to buy a more expensive graphics card for now. The catch is that because you're on an older platform, upgrading to a new, more powerful card is harder because of reasons I already explained earlier. Alright, if you're the type of person who isn't really that knowledgeable and you don't really want to spend the time putting together a budget build and you just want a solid 1080p experience today and for the foreseeable future, then buy a used Dell and throw a 1050 Ti in. But if you're the person who wants to be one of the select, one of the PC master race, and you're willing to learn how to build a PC and make upgrades over time, buy new. Sacrifice the performance now and slowly work your way to the performance you want. After all, if this is you, then you're probably interested in getting caught up with all the classic PC games of the past, at first anyway, meaning that for some time you'll be playing games like Half-Life 2, the original Assassin's Creed games, etc., which is perfect for your budget system until you are ready to get into modern AAA games. Okay, so that about wraps it up, guys. If anyone's watching this, go ahead and leave a like and I'll catch you in the next one. Later.